I pushed my key into the lock, and the door swung open like it had been used all day. A sour, sweet smell hit me first, like old milk and dirty diapers left in a hot car. Then I saw the floor. It was not my clean entryway anymore. It was a path of shoes, plastic bags, and crumpled food wrappers leading into my living room. I stood there with my overnight bag hanging from my fingers, and my stomach turned so hard I had to grab the doorframe to stay upright. Remember, I had just gotten home from a week in the hospital. My body still felt like it belonged to a different person. My head still ached where I had hit it when I passed out. My mouth tasted dry no matter how much water I forced down. The nurse had made eye contact with me at discharge and said the same thing twice. Rest, no stress, keep food down, keep water down. Then I walked into my new house and smelled a diaper pail that was not mine. I took one step inside and heard a child scream from somewhere deeper in the house. Not a quick cry. A long, angry scream that echoed off the walls like the house was too full. Then another voice, a woman's voice, sharp and tired, snapped something I could not fully hear. A door closed. Feet ran across the floor above me. My home sounded like a crowded apartment building. I stared at the living room. There were cups everywhere, some half full of cloudy water, some with dark rings in the bottom. A blanket was piled on the couch like someone had slept there. Toys sat under the coffee table. A used diaper lay rolled up on the floor beside the trash can, like someone had missed and did not care to pick it up. The trash can itself overflowed, and the lid rested crooked on top, pushed up by the weight of everything inside. I whispered my husband's name and took another step. The smell got worse. It came from the kitchen. The sink was full of dishes, not a few, a full stack, plates leaning like they were about to slide into dirty water. Pots with dried food stuck to the bottom. A bottle on its side, sticky with formula or milk. On the counter, I saw another used diaper stuffed into a grocery bag. I did not understand why it was there. I did not understand any of it. My husband came into the hallway like he had been waiting, like this was normal. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile people used when they knew you were about to be angry. "You're home," he said. I looked past him, and that was when I saw it clearly. The guest room door was open. Our second bedroom door was open. Both rooms had suitcases. Both rooms had clothes spilling out. A stroller sat against the wall like it belonged there. My chest tightened, and I felt the blood drain out of my face. "Why are there things everywhere?" I asked. My voice sounded small, even to me. He walked closer and took my bag like he was helping, like I had not just stepped into something wrong. "It's been a lot," he said. "Don't start, okay? You need to rest." I followed him toward our bedroom because my legs had begun to shake. The hallway floor had crumbs. I saw tiny sock prints in something sticky. The sound of children moved above us, a thump, then another scream. My heart beat faster with every step, and I hated that my body reacted like I was in danger, did. When we reached our bedroom, I froze again. My office had been taken apart. That was the only way to describe it. The desk I used for work was gone from its spot. My printer was on the floor. My files were not in their cabinet. Stacks of paper were dumped on top of our dresser like they had been shoved there quickly. I saw my laptop bag thrown onto the bed, and beside it was a child's sippy cup. I turned to him. What happened to my office? He sighed like I had asked him something unfair. They needed space, he said. It's just temporary. I repeated, and my voice cracked on the word. He avoided my eyes. My brother and his family. They had nowhere to go. It was only for a bit. My hands started to tremble. I had been gone for 7 days. 7 days of IV fluids, nurses waking me up, doctors asking me if I could keep crackers down. I had imagined coming home to my own bed, my quiet house, my clean bathroom. I had imagined a place where I could heal without feeling watched or pushed. Instead, I had strangers in my rooms. I had diapers on my floors. I had my work life dumped into my private space like it did not matter. I felt the first tears push hot behind my eyes, and I hated it because crying made me feel weaker. You didn't ask me, I said. You didn't even tell me. His shoulders rose and fell like he was holding in anger. I didn't want to stress you out while you were in the hospital, he said. I laughed once, but it sounded wrong. So you thought I would be less stressed by walking into this? He looked at the hallway, toward the noise, then back at me. It isn't that bad, he said. You're making it a bigger deal than it is. The room tilted slightly. Not like I was fainting, but like reality slid out from under my feet. I held onto the dresser. My skin felt too tight on my body, and I could smell the kitchen again, even with the bedroom door half closed. I thought about the nurse saying no stress, and I thought about the baby inside me, and I wondered how many days my house had been like this while I was gone. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I just need to sleep, I said. Please, can you clean up while I rest? Just the kitchen, just the diapers, please. He stared at me like I had asked for something unreasonable. Then he said, in a flat voice that made my stomach drop, this is my house too, and they're staying. So deal with it. When my husband told me to deal with it, I stood there holding the dresser like it was the only solid thing in the room. I felt something change in me. Not anger first. Fear. The kind that came when you understood you could ask for help and still be ignored. My house smelled wrong. My body felt weak. And the one person who was supposed to protect me acted like I was the problem. That moment did not start that day. It started when we bought the house. It was our first home, the first place I ever signed my name on and knew it meant something. I remembered walking through it before we moved in, touching the walls and thinking, this is ours. I pictured quiet mornings. I pictured a clean kitchen. I pictured one room that was only mine because I worked from home and I needed it. I called it my office, but it was really my control. A desk, a chair, my files, my calendar, a door I could close when my head hurt. I was 4 months pregnant when we moved in. People acted like 4 months was early and safe, like nothing could go wrong yet. But my body did not get that message. I stayed sick, not normal sick, not a little nausea in the morning. It was all day. Water did not stay down. Food felt like a threat. If I stood too fast, the room spun. If I climbed the stairs, my heart raced like I had run. I started to measure life in small choices: sit or stand, shower or rest, eat or try again later. This was not a normal tired day. My body was already in survival mode. I tried to hide how bad it was at first because I hated feeling like a burden. I hated the look people gave me when they thought I was being dramatic. I also hated how fast my life got small. I stopped going out. I stopped seeing friends. I stopped doing anything that was not necessary. The house was supposed to be the one place where I could be sick without having to explain myself. My husband tried to help in the beginning. He brought home bland food. He filled my water cup. He told me to rest. But he also got stressed fast. He had work, bills, family issues, and he acted like my sickness was another task he had to manage. When he was tired, his patience disappeared. He did not yell at first, but his tone changed. Like everything I needed was one more thing. I pushed through anyway because I did not know what else to do. I worked from home because we needed the income. I sat at my desk with a trash can beside me, forcing emails through nausea, taking calls with my camera off because my face looked gray. I told myself it would pass. People said it usually passed. Then one day, it did not just feel bad. It felt dangerous. I remembered that day in flashes because my brain seemed to protect me from holding the full picture at once. I had stood up, and my vision had narrowed like a tunnel. I tried to grab the counter. I did not make it. I went down hard. When I came back to myself, I was on the floor, and my head hurt in a deep, heavy way that made me afraid to move. There was blood on my fingers when I touched my scalp. Not a lot, but enough to make my stomach drop. My husband was not in the room when it happened. He had been dealing with something outside, and later I learned he had been helping a friend move that day. I did not even feel angry about that at first. I felt ashamed, like I had failed at staying upright in my own house. But the shame disappeared when the nausea hit again, and I realized I could not stop shaking. The next hours moved like a bad dream. Phone calls, a rush of voices, someone telling me not to fall asleep, the ride to the hospital, the lights above me, a nurse asking me the same questions twice because my answers were slow. I kept thinking about the baby, and I could not stop thinking about the hard sound my head made when it hit. In the hospital, time did not feel real. It was all beeping machines, white walls, and people coming in with clipboards. They gave me fluids and checked my vitals and asked how long I had been unable to keep food down. Every time I tried to be brave, my body betrayed me. I could not even walk to the bathroom without getting dizzy. I hated being there, but I was also relieved because someone was finally taking it seriously. A doctor told me my dehydration was not something to push through. A nurse told me stress could make it worse. Another nurse looked at my chart, then looked at me, and spoke slowly like she wanted to make sure I listened. You need a calm environment when you go home. You need rest. You need help. If you faint again, it could be worse next time. I nodded, but inside I felt embarrassed. I was 26. I owned a home. I was going to be a mother, and I needed other people to tell me to sit down and drink water like I was a child. My husband visited, but he seemed pulled in two directions. He was worried, but he also looked tired and irritated, like the hospital was another problem he had to solve. He told me everything was fine at home. He said he had it handled. When I asked what that meant, he said, "Don't worry about it. Focus on getting better." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him because the thought of leaving the hospital and still not being safe made my chest tighten. During that week, I pictured home like a soft place waiting for me. I pictured the clean sheets. I pictured my office still set up, my files where I left them. I pictured being able to wake up and not hear anything but the house settling and the air conditioner humming. I pictured walking into my kitchen and seeing a clean glass waiting for me. I also pictured my husband finally understanding. I thought the fear of that fall had changed something. I thought he would be gentle when I got home, the way he had been when we first found out I was pregnant. I told myself, maybe we needed a scare to reset us. Maybe this was the moment we became a team again. The morning I got discharged, my hands shook when I signed the papers. The nurse walked me through the instructions like she expected me to forget them. She told me to come back if I felt faint, if I could not keep fluids down, if I had headaches that got worse. She told me to avoid stress like it was a real medical order, not just advice. I kept repeating one thought as I walked out to the car with my husband beside me. Home, quiet, safe. So when I walked into the house, I expected safety, not guests. My office mattered because it was the only place in the house where I could control the noise and the pressure. I did not work for fun. I worked because the mortgage did not care that I was pregnant. If I missed deadlines, I lost money. If I lost money, we lost stability. I had built that room carefully, not fancy, just functional. A desk facing the wall so I could focus. A small shelf with labeled folders. A calendar with my medical appointments and my work meetings. It was the one corner of our new life that felt organized. When I got sick, that room became even more important. I could close the door, keep a trash can near me, keep water within reach, and take breaks without feeling watched. I could sit with my back supported and still be useful. It was the difference between feeling like a person and feeling like a patient. In our marriage, we had never written down rules for guests, but we had an unspoken deal. We asked each other first, especially for overnight stays, especially for family. It was not because we hated people. It was because a house stopped feeling safe when you could not predict who would be in it. I had grown up with a mother who believed privacy was a kind of safety. If someone needed help, we helped, but there were limits. There was always a conversation first. There was always a plan. How long? What space? What expectations? If you stayed in someone's home, you cleaned up after yourself. You respected the person who lived there. My husband came from the opposite kind of family. In his family, people showed up and stayed, and nobody said no. If you said no, you were called selfish. If you asked for a timeline, you were accused of not caring. Love was measured by how much you tolerated. Before we bought this house, I had watched him get pulled into that pattern again and again. His brother would call with a problem, and my husband would tense up like he had been trained to respond. He would say yes before we even talked. Later, when I asked why, he would say, "What was I supposed to do? It is family." The words always sounded like an excuse and a threat at the same time. We had argued about it more than once, not screaming arguments, but the kind that left cold air in the room after. I told him I did not want surprise visitors. I told him I needed to be asked. He promised he understood. Then his phone would ring and his face would change, and I would feel the decision being made without me. It got worse after I got pregnant, because everyone had opinions, and everyone acted like the baby belonged to the whole family. His mother asked questions that felt like instructions. His brother joked about moving in so we could all raise the baby together. People laughed like it was harmless, but I remembered the way my husband did not laugh back. He looked nervous, like he could already see himself agreeing to something he did not want, but could not refuse. When I imagined welcoming someone into our home, I imagined planning. I imagined clean sheets and a clear place for them to put their things. I imagined knowing what day they would leave. I imagined my husband and I speaking as one unit, both of us meaning yes, not one person saying yes, and the other person having to accept it. That was what made it feel so violating when I came home and realized he had made a decision that changed every part of my day without even giving me a chance to speak. He did not just let them stay. He gave them rooms. He moved my work out of the way like it was clutter. He let the kitchen become unusable. He let my recovery turn into a crowded, loud situation where I had to explain why I needed quiet, as if my illness was a preference. And the worst part was the way he talked about it, like I was overreacting, like I was being difficult. When he said, "This is my house too," it landed like a door closing. Not because I denied it was his house, but because he used it like a weapon. He used it to tell me I had no control, even while I was weak, even while I was carrying our baby. Two big needs collided: my health and his family loyalty. I looked at the piles of my papers on the dresser. I could see my handwriting on sticky notes, reminders to myself. Follow up on invoices. Email the client. Doctor appointment at 10. All of it felt small and stupid next to the fact that my home no longer had space for me to breathe. I tried to keep my voice steady because I knew what stress did to my body. I didn't say your brother can't get help, I said. I said you didn't ask me, and I can't live like this right now. He rubbed his face like he was tired of the conversation. They're going through a lot, he said. I'm not going to throw them out. I heard the kids again, running upstairs. A hard bang against a wall. Then a small wail that turned into crying. It did not stop. It built and built until it filled the house like an alarm that nobody responded to. Where is she? I asked, meaning my sister-in-law. He shrugged. In the room, I guess. In the room, I repeated, while they scream. He looked irritated. They're kids, he said. They cry, just ignore it. Ignore it. That was what he expected from me. Ignore the smell. Ignore the mess. Ignore the noise. Ignore the way my office had been dismantled. Ignore the fact that I had been told by medical staff to avoid stress, and he had turned my home into the exact thing they warned me about. I felt my throat tighten again. I did not want to fight. I did not have the energy to fight. My muscles felt heavy, like my limbs had sand inside them. I just wanted a clean glass of water and a quiet room and sleep. I looked down at my hands and realized they were still shaking. Please, I said softer, because begging felt humiliating, but also necessary. I need you to clean. I need the kitchen clean. I need the diapers gone. I need a place to recover. He stared at me for a second like he was deciding what kind of husband he wanted to be. Then he turned his head toward the hallway, toward the noise, and I could see where his loyalty went without him having to say it. I'll do it later, he said. Just go lie down. It sounded reasonable on the surface, but I had learned something about later. Later was the word people used when they did not plan to do it at all. I walked to the bed and sat down slowly, because dizziness came fast now. I listened to the house around me, doors opening and closing, feet on stairs, a child crying like no one was coming, a woman's voice muffled behind a closed door, annoyed, not comforting. I lay back and tried to relax, but my stomach stayed tight. My mind stayed alert, counting sounds, tracking movement, waiting for the moment someone I did not invite would walk into my space again. The mess had been shocking, but it had not been the real problem. The real problem was that I had asked my husband for help, and he had answered me like I was alone. I stood in my bedroom with my work papers stacked like garbage on top of my dresser, and I started to cry in a way that surprised me. It was not loud at first. It was silent and shaking. Tears ran down my face and into my mouth, and I tasted salt and that hospital dryness that never went away. I hated that I cried in front of him, but my body felt too weak to hold it in. My husband watched me like he did not know what to do with me. I pointed at the piles. These are important, I said. You moved everything. He shrugged. I didn't have a choice. That answer hit me wrong. It was like he had already decided my life was less important than whatever emergency his brother had. I looked around the room for anything that still felt like mine. Even my nightstand had been opened. I could tell because a bottle of lotion was sitting in a different spot. A drawer was not closed all the way. It felt small, but it made my skin prickle. "You could have called me," I said. "You could have texted. You could have asked." His face tightened. "You were in the hospital," he said, like that explained everything. "I didn't want to deal with you freaking out." I stared at him. "I didn't want to deal with passing out and hitting my head," I said. My voice shook on the last words. "I didn't choose any of this." He looked away, and I could see his jaw clench, like he had decided my fear was an inconvenience. I walked out of the bedroom and down the hallway again because I needed air and I needed proof that what I saw was real. The house felt occupied in a way I could not explain, like the walls had been touched too much, like the air belonged to someone else now. In the bathroom, there were damp towels on the floor. In the hallway, there was a small plastic cup with dried juice stuck to the inside. A diaper smell clung to everything, even in places I could not see. I thought about germs. I thought about the nurse warning me to avoid stress and to rest. I thought about how my immune system already felt like it was losing. Another child cried upstairs, and the sound drilled into my temples. I went back to the kitchen. I opened the cabinet where we kept glasses. They were all gone. I opened another cabinet. More empty space. The sink was still full, and the water in it looked gray, with food floating like it had been sitting there for hours. I leaned against the counter and tried to breathe slowly. My heart beat fast for no reason. My hands were cold. My stomach rolled, not from pregnancy this time, but from disgust. My husband came into the kitchen behind me. "You're working yourself up," he said. I turned and looked at him. "I just got out of the hospital," I said. "I needed a clean home." He lifted his hands like he was trying to calm a stranger. "It isn't that bad." Those words made my face go hot. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the shirt and drag him toward the diaper on the floor and make him smell it up close. Instead, I just stared because I could not understand how the person I married could look at this and say it was fine. "It is that bad," I said. "It's worse. I can't even get water." He exhaled hard. "So wash a glass." I felt something crack inside me, not like a dramatic break, but like a small thread snapping. I could not keep fighting. My head started to throb. The room seemed too bright. I swallowed, and it hurt because my throat was tight. "Okay," I said, forcing the word out. "Okay, I'm not doing this right now." He watched me, and I could tell he expected me to keep going, to argue until he won, to accept it, to adjust. That was what his family did. Someone pushed, and everyone else moved. I did not have the strength to move. I took a slow breath and made myself speak carefully, like I was talking to someone dangerous. "I need to sleep," I said. "I need you to do one thing." He rolled his eyes just a little, but I saw it. "What?" he said. "Clean," I said. "Please. Just clean the kitchen and the living room. Get the diapers out. Wash the dishes. Clear the counters. Make it safe. Do it while I sleep." He paused like he was thinking about whether he could say no without looking like the bad guy. Then he nodded once, quick and annoyed. "Fine," he said. "Go lie down." I did not thank him. I did not trust the promise, but it was all I had. My legs felt heavy as I walked back to the bedroom. I stepped over a small toy in the hallway and nearly lost my balance. My vision flickered at the edges for a second, and fear shot through me. I sat on the bed and waited for the dizziness to pass. From somewhere upstairs, I heard a thump, then a child laugh, then another scream. I pulled the blanket over me even though I was not cold. I closed my eyes. The noise did not stop, but exhaustion dragged me down anyway. It felt like falling through a trapdoor. 1 second I was tense, listening. The next, I was gone. When I woke up, the light in the room had changed. My mouth felt like sandpaper. My stomach cramped with hunger and nausea at the same time. I reached for water on my nightstand, and my hand hit empty wood. I sat up slowly and listened. The house still sounded crowded. The same running feet, the same crying, the same doors opening and shutting like people did not care who they disturbed. I walked to the kitchen with a sick hope in my chest, telling myself I had been unfair, telling myself he would have cleaned, telling myself this was the one chance before everything exploded. The sink was still full, the trash was still overflowing, and there were still no clean glasses. I stood in front of the sink and stared at it like it was a test I had already failed. My throat burned with thirst. My tongue felt swollen. The discharge nurse had told me to drink constantly, small sips all day, like it was a medicine. I opened every cabinet again anyway, hoping I had missed one clean glass. There was nothing. Every cup I found had fingerprints, dried milk, or a sour smell that made my stomach flip. I held one up to the light and saw a cloudy film stuck to the inside. My hands started shaking again, not from anger this time, but from that thin, weak feeling that came right before dizziness. I turned on the tap, and the sound of running water made nausea climb up my throat. The sink water rose around plates and spoons like a dirty bath. I swallowed hard, breathing through my mouth so I would not smell it too much. I kept telling myself I only needed one thing, one clean glass. I could drink and go back to bed. I could stay out of the way. I could survive the day. Upstairs, a child ran across the floor and something heavy fell. I heard laughter. Then a sudden cry that turned into whining. No adult voice came to calm it. The noise just lived there, filling the spaces between the walls. I looked toward the hallway, waiting to see my husband walk in, and realize what he had done. I waited for him to say he was sorry, that he got distracted, that he would fix it right now. The house stayed the same. The sink stayed full. The trash stayed open like a mouth. That was when the resentment started, quiet and cold. Not loud enough to become a fight, just enough to make me feel alone. I reached into the sink and pulled out the least disgusting glass I could find. The water was lukewarm and greasy, and it coated my fingers. I scrubbed the glass hard, like pressure could erase the fact that somebody else had been living in my home. My wrists ached. My head pulsed. I rinsed it, then rinsed it again, until the smell faded. When I finally drank, the water tasted like chlorine and old sponge. It still helped. My body accepted it, and I felt a small relief, like a fire had gone down a little. I leaned against the counter and waited to see if the water would stay down. It did, but the nausea stayed close, like it was watching me. I should have stopped there. I should have gone back to bed and let the house rot around me. But the sight of everything made something in my mind itch. It was not pride. It was panic. If the kitchen stayed like this, I could not eat. If I could not eat, I got weaker. If I got weaker, I fainted again. My body did not have room for mistakes anymore. So I started washing. At first it was mechanical. Plate, scrub, rinse. Cup, scrub, rinse. I moved slowly because if I bent too fast, black spots flickered at the edges of my vision. My back tightened. My stomach clenched with each smell that rose from the sink. Every time I lifted a pot, the weight pulled on my arms and made my heart race. I kept glancing toward the hallway, half expecting someone to come in and stop me, or thank me, or at least notice. Nobody came. I heard the guest bedroom door open, then close. I heard a woman cough behind a door, then silence. I heard little feet on the stairs and a child ask for something, loud and demanding. The answer came from far away, annoyed, like the child was bothering her by needing anything at all. The child started crying again. I scrubbed harder, angry at myself for listening, angry that the sound made my muscles tighten. My head started to ache behind my eyes. I took breaks without meaning to, hands frozen in soapy water while my body fought off dizziness. Each time I told myself, just one more dish, just clear one section of counter, just make one safe spot. I kept finding more, a bottle with thick liquid stuck inside, a spoon with dried cereal like glue, a plate with crumbs pressed into it like someone had used it and left it on the floor. I found a sippy cup lid in the sink drain, blocking water, and when I pulled it out, a sour smell puffed up so strong I gagged. I clapped my hand over my mouth and stood very still until the gagging passed. My eyes watered, and I did not know if it was from the smell or from crying again. I looked at the trash can and saw diapers pushed down into it, the top of one folded over with stains showing. Flies had not come yet, but it felt like they could any moment. I grabbed a new trash bag with trembling hands. I tied up the old one, double knotted, because I was terrified it would leak on the floor. The smell seeped through anyway. As I carried it to the outside bin, the cool air hit my face, and I realized I had been sweating. My shirt stuck to my back. My heart was racing like I had run, not walked. I came back inside and had to stop at the doorway. The smell did not leave the house. It clung to my hair and my hands. It made the kitchen feel smaller, heavier. I wiped the counters with disinfectant until the chemical smell replaced the sour one. The chemical smell was its own kind of nausea, sharp and burning, but it felt cleaner, so I accepted it. I did not do it for them. I did it because I needed to believe I could still control something. I heard a laugh behind me and turned. One of the kids stood in the hallway watching me. Their face was sticky. Their hands were dirty. They stared like I was part of the furniture. "Where's your dad?" I asked softly, because I did not want to scare them. They shrugged and ran away. A minute later, I heard them slam into something upstairs again. I kept cleaning slower now, like each movement cost me something. My legs started to cramp. My lower back hurt in a deep, tired way that scared me because I knew my body needed rest, not work. I drank water in small sips and prayed it would stay down. At some point, my husband walked through the kitchen without stopping. He did not look at the sink. He did not look at the counters. He did not look at my face. He grabbed something from the fridge, shut the door, and said, "You didn't have to do all that." I stared at him, and the words I wanted to say felt too big. "You promised. You left me with nothing. You watched me work like I was staff in my own home." Instead, I said, "I needed a clean glass." He made a sound like he understood, but his eyes moved past me, already thinking about something else. Then he left the room again, and the house swallowed him up like it always did. That was when I knew I was not cleaning to win anything. I was not cleaning to prove a point. I was cleaning because I could not survive in filth, and nobody else was going to fix it. By the time I stopped, my hands were wrinkled and red. My stomach felt hollow and fragile. My head throbbed with each heartbeat. The kitchen looked better, but the rest of the house still felt occupied and wrong. I went back to bed and tried to sleep again, but the noise never fully stopped. It rose and fell like waves, and each time it rose, my body tensed as if it expected impact. When the morning came, I understood what the real problem would be. The noise started, and it did not stop. The next morning started with a bang against my office door. I was half awake when it happened. My heart jumped so hard it made me nauseous. For one confused second, I thought I was back in the hospital, and someone had dropped a tray. Then I heard small feet running away, and a child laughing like it was a game. I lay still and listened. The house never settled. There was always movement, a drawer opening, a door slamming, a TV turning on too loud, a child crying, then stopping, then crying again like they could not decide what they needed. I sat up slowly and pressed my hand to my stomach. The baby moved in a small, quiet way that usually comforted me. That morning, it made me feel guilty, like I was failing already. I had promised myself this house would be safe. I had promised myself I would protect this pregnancy. I could not even protect a morning. I got dressed with shaking hands and walked to what used to be my office. The desk was not in the right place. My chair was pushed against a wall. Boxes sat on the floor like someone had moved through the room and never finished. My files were missing, and I had to dig through stacks in my bedroom just to find the folder I needed for work. I set up my laptop on the corner of the desk and tried to make a clean space with my forearm, pushing random papers aside. I opened my email and stared at the screen. The letters looked sharp and too bright. I blinked hard and told myself to focus. Just answer messages. Just do the next task. Do not think about anything else. A child started crying upstairs. It was not a quiet cry. It was loud and raw, like pain or panic. The sound hit my skull like a hammer. I waited for an adult voice. I waited for footsteps. Nothing came. The crying turned into screaming. I tried to type, but my fingers hesitated over the keys. My brain kept turning toward the sound, trying to measure it, trying to decide if I needed to intervene. The scream went on and on until it felt like it filled my lungs too. I tasted nausea again and reached for water. Another bang came from the hallway, hard enough that the wall beside my door vibrated. Then I heard giggling again. The giggling turned into shouting. I stood up and opened the office door. One of the kids ran past me, holding something in their hand. They did not look at me. They did not slow down. They moved like this house belonged to them now, like I was just another obstacle. I stepped into the hallway and looked toward the guest room. The door was closed. I heard muffled noise behind it, maybe a phone video playing, maybe someone talking. I knocked lightly because anything more felt like a fight. The crying upstairs continued. It sounded closer now, like the child was on the landing. "Hey," I said through the door. "Can you help them? They're really upset." Silence for a second. Then a woman's voice, flat and annoyed. "They're fine." That was it. No apology. No movement. Just those two words like a dismissal. I stood there feeling stupid, like I had walked into a wall. I wanted to say, "I'm sick. I'm pregnant. I need quiet." I wanted to say, "You can't ignore your kids in someone else's home and act like it is normal." But my throat tightened, and I pictured my husband's face if I caused a scene. I pictured him accusing me of being cold, of being unwelcoming, of not understanding. So I went back into my office and closed the door, even though it did not help. The crying moved downstairs and filled the hallway. It became a loud, wet sobbing that did not stop. A small fist hit the wall once, then again. I heard a toy being thrown. Something plastic clattered and rolled. I stared at my laptop and tried to read a message. I read the same line 3 times and could not hold it in my head. This was not just noise. It was constant interruption. My body reacted to every sound like it was danger. My shoulders stayed tight. My jaw stayed clenched. My heart kept racing in short bursts. It was like my nervous system never got a chance to rest. I reminded myself of what the doctor had said. Calm environment, reduced stress. I almost laughed at the memory because it felt impossible now. I had no calm environment. I had a house full of people who acted like my need for calm was an insult. I tried headphones. The crying still came through, the low pounding of it, the vibration of it. I turned the volume higher and felt my nausea rise with it. I could not win. At some point, one of the kids tried my office door handle. It rattled once, twice, then a hard shove. The door did not open because I had locked it, but the sound made my chest tighten. Stop, I called, trying to keep my voice even. The handle rattled again. I pushed back from the desk and opened the door quickly, not to scare them, but because I needed it to stop. The child stood there with wide eyes and a red face, and then they screamed again, right in front of me, like my face had triggered it. I stood frozen, hands half raised, not touching them, not knowing what was allowed. Their cheeks were wet. Their hair stuck to their forehead. They looked exhausted. "Where's your mom?" I asked softly. They pointed down the hall at the closed guest room door, then screamed again, louder, like that answer made it worse. I knocked again, harder this time, because the scream made my head pound. "Please," I said, "can you come get them?" The door opened a crack. My sister-in-law looked at me like I was attacking her. Her eyes were flat. Her mouth was tight. "I'm busy," she said. "With what?" I asked, and I hated the sharpness in my voice, but I could not stop it. "Your kid is screaming." Her expression changed fast, anger flashing like a switch. "Don't tell me how to parent," she snapped. Then she closed the door again. The child stared at the door like they did not understand. Then they turned and ran away, crying harder. I went back into my office and sat down with my hands on the desk. My fingers tingled. My heart felt too big for my chest. I thought about how easy it would have been for her to just pick them up, to calm them, to take them outside. It was not just the noise. It was the lack of care. I looked at my email again and realized an hour had passed, and I had done almost nothing. My work sat open like a reminder that I could not pause my life just because my home had been taken over. She is sick, she is working, and the house is not hers anymore. By late afternoon, the kids got louder, not quieter. They argued with each other. They slammed doors. They dragged toys across the floor. Every sound scraped at my nerves. I tried to eat a few bites of toast and felt it turn heavy in my stomach. I drank water and prayed. When my husband finally came home, I heard his keys and felt a rush of relief, so strong it almost made me cry again. Relief, because I thought maybe he would see it now. Maybe he would hear it. Maybe he would realize this could not continue. He walked into my office without knocking, like the lock on my door meant nothing. His face was tense before he even spoke. He looked past me at the mess of papers, at my laptop, at the locked door, and his eyes narrowed. "What is this?" he asked. I turned in my chair, careful, slow. "This is me trying to work," I said. He scoffed. "My brother just told me you've been acting like they're not wanted here," he said. "He said you've been rude, and the house looks like you didn't do anything all day." I stared at him because the words did not match reality. I had cleaned while I was sick. I had held my nausea down with willpower. I had begged for basic peace and gotten ignored. I opened my mouth to answer, but he cut me off with the line that made my blood go cold. "This could have been handled," he said, "but you didn't even try to make them feel welcome." When he said, "I did not even try to make them feel welcome," my body reacted before my mind did. My chest tightened. My hands went cold. I felt that familiar dizziness rise like a wave, and I gripped the edge of the desk to keep the room steady. I looked at him and waited for the rest of the sentence, the part where he admitted he was joking, or the part where he said he understood I had just come home from the hospital. It never came. "I cleaned," I said. My voice sounded small in my own ears. "I cleaned the kitchen because there were no clean glasses. I cleaned because I needed water." He shook his head like he did not believe me. "You always do this," he said. "You get dramatic and make everything about you." The words landed like a slap. "Everything about you." Like the baby did not exist. Like my hospital bracelet had not been on my wrist a week earlier. Like my body had not hit the floor in this same house. A door slammed upstairs. One of the kids screamed. The sound cut through me and made my stomach twist. "I am not being dramatic," I said slower, because if I spoke too fast I would cry. "I am sick. I am pregnant. I need rest. I need quiet." He stared at me, jaw tight. "They need a place to stay," he said. "I'm not going to turn my back on my brother." "That is not what I asked," I said. I pushed back from the desk and stood up carefully. My legs felt unsteady, like they did not fully belong to me. "I asked you to talk to me before moving them in. I asked you to clean. I asked you to help with the noise. You did none of it." He took a step into the room, filling the doorway, making it feel smaller. "Because I've been handling everything," he said, "while you've been in bed acting like the world owes you something." My throat tightened. For a second, I could not speak. I could only hear the kids running, the constant pounding, like the house had a second heartbeat that did not match mine. I swallowed and forced the words out. "I was in the hospital," I said. "I was not on vacation." His eyes flicked away, like he did not want to look at that truth. Then he came back harder, like he needed to win. My brother said you were cold to his wife, he said. He said you made her feel uncomfortable. I laughed once, sharp and ugly, because it was either that or scream. Uncomfortable, I repeated. I knocked on the door because her kid was screaming and she refused to come out. He frowned. She said you snapped at her. I asked her to parent, I said. My voice rose without my permission. I asked her to get her child. That's it. He lifted his hands, angry now. You don't get to talk about my family like that. I stared at him. My family, I said quietly, and the words tasted bitter. I am your family. This baby is your family. Silence hit for half a second, and in that silence, I realized something that scared me more than the noise. He did not know how to answer that. He did not know how to choose. I took a breath and tried again, because I still believed there was a version of him that could hear me. They need to leave, I said. Not forever. Not in a cruel way. But they need to leave this house. I can't do this. His face hardened immediately. No, he said. Absolutely not. The simple refusal made my skin go cold. No, I repeated, like I had misheard. They can stay, he said. End of discussion. The office felt like it tilted. I held the desk again. My heart hammered in my throat, and I pictured myself fainting in this room, hitting the corner of the desk, waking up on the floor while children ran around me and nobody helped. This is the line, I thought. Her health versus his refusal. I tried to keep my voice level. If you won't make them leave, then I need to leave, I said. I need to go somewhere quiet, somewhere clean. He scoffed. Don't be ridiculous, he said. Where are you going to go? I hesitated. I hated that I had to say it. I hated that I was about to bring my mother into my marriage like a weapon. I could already feel the shame, like heat on my face. But the fear was bigger than the shame. My mom, I said. His eyes widened, sharp with warning. Do not call your mom, he said. That should have stopped me. It would have, on any normal day. But nothing about this felt normal. My body felt fragile. My home felt hostile. And my husband stood in the doorway like a guard, not a partner. I felt tears slip down my face again, hot and silent. You are not listening, I said. You are not seeing what this is doing to me. He exhaled hard, like I was exhausting him. Because you're making it worse, he said. If you would just relax, none of this would be a problem. Relax. The word sounded insane in my head, like telling someone to relax while their house burned. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. I did it slowly, giving him one last chance to stop it by doing the right thing. He did not move. I looked at the screen until my vision blurred. My mother's name sat there like a door I had tried not to open. I tapped it. The ring tone sounded too loud in the office. 1 ring. 2. Each ring felt like a step away from my husband. He stepped forward. Hang up, he said. I put the phone to my ear with a trembling hand. My mouth was dry. My chest hurt with each breath. I kept my eyes on him because I did not trust him not to grab the phone. My mom answered on the third ring. Hello. For a second, I could not speak. I heard the noise in the house behind me, distant but constant, like a storm behind a thin wall. I heard my husband's breathing. I tasted bile at the back of my throat. Mom, I said, and my voice broke. I need to come stay with you. There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause that meant she was listening to everything I was not saying out loud. What happened? She asked. I looked at my husband again, and something in me decided I was done protecting him from embarrassment. Protecting him had not protected me. He let his brother's family move in while I was in the hospital, I said. The house is filthy. There are used diapers. My office is gone. I can't rest, and he won't make them leave. My husband's face changed as the words left my mouth. His eyes narrowed. His lips tightened. He looked like a man hearing his own name in a room full of strangers. My mom did not hesitate. Her voice went quiet and dangerous. Stay where you are, she said. I'm coming. I pulled the phone away and ended the call. The silence after felt heavy, like the air had thickened. My husband stared at me like I had betrayed him. You just made this a problem, he said. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. My skin felt hot and wet. My stomach rolled again. It was already a problem, I said. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, I heard a car door slam outside, and then another, and another, and I realized my mom did not come alone. I heard the front door open without a knock, and my whole body went tight. My husband moved first, stepping into the hallway like he could block what was coming. I followed a few steps behind him, slow and careful, because my legs still felt weak and my stomach still felt unstable. My mom's voice filled the house before I even saw her. It was controlled, but there was heat under it, the kind that meant she had already decided what needed to happen. Where is she? My mom asked. I stepped around my husband and saw her in the entryway. She stood with her purse still on her shoulder, like she had not come to visit. She had come to fix something. Behind her were my brothers, two of them, tall and quiet, with their eyes moving over the floor, the hallway, the piles, taking it in like evidence. My husband's face went pale. He looked at me like I had done something illegal. My mom looked straight at him. You let people move into her house while she was in the hospital, she said. It was not a question. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out at first. Then he said, It's my house too. My mom nodded once, like she accepted the fact, but not the excuse. Then you should have protected it, she said. And you should have protected her. From upstairs came a sharp cry, then a thump. One of the kids ran down the stairs and stopped when they saw strangers. They stared at my mom and my brothers like they were not sure if they were allowed to be afraid. My mom did not look at the child. She looked at the mess behind them. Her eyes moved to the kitchen, where the trash still sat too full, and the counter still held things that did not belong there. The smell reached the entryway now that the door had opened and air had shifted. She turned her gaze back to me, and her expression changed. The anger softened into something else, something that made my throat tighten. "Oh, honey," she said. I tried to speak and failed. Tears came again, because now I was not alone. The pressure I had been holding in my chest had somewhere to go, and it went out through my eyes. My husband made a sound like he was annoyed by the crying, as if that was the problem in the room. One of my brothers looked at him. "She just got out of the hospital," he said, voice flat. "And this is what you brought her home to." My husband's jaw clenched. "You don't understand what's going on," he said. My other brother took one step forward, and the movement changed the air. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. He just stood there like a wall. "What we understand," he said, "is she looks like she might fall over." My mom walked past my husband without asking permission. She went deeper into the house, looking down the hallway, turning her head toward the closed doors. Every step she took made me feel both relief and fear. Relief, because someone was finally seeing it. Fear, because once my mom saw something, she did not forget it. And she did not pretend. She stopped at the guest room door and listened. There was a muffled sound from inside, maybe a phone, maybe a video. She did not knock. She turned back toward my husband instead. "Your brother and his wife are here," she said. My husband said, "They're staying with us." My mom's eyes narrowed. "And you thought that was okay," she said, "while she was in the hospital, while she's 4 months pregnant." He lifted his hands. "They needed help. So did your wife," my mom said, her voice sharpened. "And you picked them." The words hung there. My husband flinched as if he had been hit. From upstairs, another loud bang. Then a child started crying again, the sound high and endless, and I saw my mom's face harden. It was not just anger anymore. It was disgust. Not at the kids. At the adults who had allowed this chaos to live in my home. My mom turned to me and took my hands. Her hands were warm and steady, and mine were cold and shaky. "You're going to bed," she said, "right now." "I can help," I whispered, because it felt wrong to let other people clean my mess, even though it was not my mess. "I'm okay." My mom shook her head. "No," she said, "you are not okay. You are recovering. You are growing a baby. You are done." I looked at my husband, hoping he would say something that sounded like care, or shame, or anything human. He looked trapped, angry, and embarrassed, his eyes flicking to my brother's like he was measuring the room, and realizing he could not control it anymore. My mom faced him again. "If your family can stay," she said, "so can mine." My husband opened his mouth fast. "This isn't necessary." My mom did not raise her voice, but she made each word clear. "It is necessary because you refused to handle it," she said. "So now it will be handled." My brothers moved past him without another word, heading for the kitchen like they already knew where the worst part would be. One of them picked up a stray shoe in the hallway and held it up, turning it in his hand like he could not understand how it ended up there. He did not say anything, but his silence was judgment all by itself. My mom guided me toward the bedroom. As we walked, I saw my brother-in-law step out of the guest room, drawn by the voices. He looked at my mom and my brothers, then looked at me, and his face shifted into something defensive, like I had set a trap. "What's going on?" he asked. My mom answered before I could. "What's going on is she came home from the hospital to a dirty house and a dismantled office," she said. "What's going on is you're living here without her consent." My brother-in-law's eyes widened. "We didn't do anything," he said quickly. "We've been keeping to ourselves." My mom's gaze went to the hallway, then to the kitchen, then back to him. "I can smell you're keeping to yourselves," she said. He looked at my husband for help. My husband avoided his eyes. My mom pushed the bedroom door open and sat me on the edge of the bed like I was a child again. She took my face in her hands and studied me, taking in the dark circles under my eyes, the dryness of my lips, the way my shoulders sat too high. "You stay here," she said. "Do not come out. If you feel dizzy, you call me." I nodded because I could not fight her. I did not want to. I wanted to disappear into the mattress and let someone else carry the weight for a few hours. As she turned to leave, I heard my brothers in the kitchen. Cabinets opening, the trash bag snapping. Their voices were low but sharp, disbelief and anger woven into simple words. "How did it get this bad?" one of them said. "Used diapers," the other said. "In her house." The sounds of cleaning started, fast and loud, like a rescue operation, and with every trash bag dragged across the floor, with every dish stacked too hard in the sink, another sound grew louder too. Judgment. It filled the house just as quickly as the mess had. I lay in bed with the door half closed, listening to my own house being judged out loud. Every sound carried through the hallway. The snap of gloves, the rush of water, the hard clink of plates stacked too fast. My brothers did not clean quietly the way I did when I tried to keep peace. They cleaned like they were angry at every surface, and they talked while they worked. "This is nasty," one of them said, loud enough that I knew he wanted my husband to hear it. "I just pulled a diaper out from behind the couch," the other said. Behind the couch. Their words sank into me like stones. Even though it was not my mess, I felt exposed. Like the dirt made me look weak. Like anyone listening would assume I had let my home get this way. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to breathe slowly. My mom had told me not to get up. She had told me to rest. But rest felt impossible when I could hear people nomming everything wrong, item by item. I heard my husband's voice in the kitchen, lower than my brothers' voices. He sounded sharp and embarrassed. "You don't have to talk like that," he said. one of my brothers answered immediately. Then you shouldn't have let it get like this, he said. His tone stayed calm, but the words cut. My stomach tightened. I pictured my husband standing in his own kitchen with my brothers around him, and I could feel the heat of his humiliation from down the hall. He hated being watched. He hated being judged. He hated feeling like he had lost control. I hated that a part of me cared about that. I rolled onto my side and pressed my hand to my belly again, trying to ground myself in something real and steady. The baby moved, small and sure, and it made me want to cry again. It reminded me that I was not fighting over pride. I was fighting over safety. My bedroom door creaked, and my mom stepped in. She carried a clean glass of water like it was a gift. She set it on my nightstand gently and brushed my hair back from my forehead. "You look pale," she said. "I'm fine," I lied, because I did not want her to look at me with that soft fear again. She did not argue. She just sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the noise outside the room. My brothers' voices rose again. "Why are there clothes in the hallway?" one of them asked. "And why are these dishes all sticky?" the other said. "Like they've been here for days." My mom's jaw tightened. "You did the right thing calling me," she said quietly. I stared at the wall because if I looked at her, my face would give me away. The shame sat in my chest like pressure. I had grown up thinking that if you were strong, you handled your own problems. You did not call your mother to come rescue you from your husband, but I had tried to handle it. I had begged. I had cleaned until my hands hurt. I had swallowed my anger until it turned into nausea, and it had not changed anything. Out in the hallway, a child laughed, then cried. The crying turned into shouting. It bounced around the house, and nobody stopped it. My mom stood up. "Stay here," she said again, firmer. I meant it. She left, and I listened to her footsteps move toward the kitchen. Footsteps that did not hesitate. A moment later, I heard her voice, loud enough to slice through the cleaning noise. "Whose dishes are these?" she asked. My brother-in-law answered, defensive. "We've been trying to keep up," he said. My mom made a sound that was half disbelief, half anger. "Trying," she repeated. She came home from the hospital and couldn't find a clean glass. There was a pause after that. A heavy silence, like even the house held its breath. Then my husband spoke, voice tight. "Can you not do this right now?" he said. "This is turning into a pylon." My brother answered without hesitation. "It's a pylon because you buried her under it," he said. I pulled the blanket up higher, as if fabric could block words. I hated hearing them fight about me like I was not there. I hated that I was the reason the house sounded like this. But at the same time, I felt a thin strand of relief. Finally, someone said the part I had been too tired to say. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed on the bed. The sound made me jump. I picked it up and saw a message from my mother-in-law. My thumb hovered over it for a second because my stomach already knew what it would say. My mother-in-law had always talked about loyalty like it was the only rule that mattered. She cared about who stayed united, not about who got hurt. I opened the message, and my chest tightened as I read. She asked what I thought I was doing calling my mom. She said I had made my brother-in-law uncomfortable. She said I should have helped more instead of making a scene. She said family helped family, and I should not have embarrassed my husband. Each line felt like a small shove. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I could hear my brothers cleaning. I could hear trash bags being tied. I could hear water running. In my hand, the phone felt hot, like it carried a fever. My first instinct was to defend myself, to write back a long explanation about used diapers and no clean glass and nausea and dizziness, and how I could not work through screaming. To tell her her son had looked me in the face and said it was not that bad, but I knew how that would go. She would not hear the details. She would hear the betrayal. She would hear that I brought outsiders into the family problem. I started typing anyway. My hands shook and I erased it. I tried again. I erased it again. Nothing I wrote felt safe, so I did nothing. I just stared at her words, feeling the familiar pull to fold myself smaller so other people could stay comfortable. Outside my door, the cleaning continued, relentless. My brothers sounded angrier now, like they took my silence as permission to say what they really thought. "I can't believe he left her with this," one of them said. "Pregnant and sick. He let them take over her office," the other said. "Like her work doesn't matter." Their words warmed something in my chest and burned something too. Support felt good. It also made it clear how wrong the situation had been. It made it impossible to pretend I was overreacting. I heard my husband's footsteps in the hallway. He stopped outside my door, but he did not come in. I could feel him there anyway, like a shadow. "I didn't know it was that bad," he said through the door. The sentence made my eyes sting. Not because it was an apology. It was. It was a defense. It meant he had not believed me until other people showed up and started nomming the dirt out loud. I did not answer. I could not. If I spoke, I would either cry or scream, and I did not trust my body to handle either. He stood there a moment longer, then walked away. His steps were heavy, angry at everyone, and also at himself. I heard him in the kitchen again, voice low, trying to explain, trying to control the story. And then, over the sound of the vacuum and the running water, I heard a new sound. A car pulled up outside. A door slammed, then another door. Voices unfamiliar at first, then sharp and close. My mom's voice rose at the front of the house, greeting someone with the kind of forced politeness that meant trouble had arrived. A second later, my mother-in-law's voice cut through everything, loud and angry. "I came as soon as I heard," she said. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, because I knew she had come ready to blame me. But when she stepped inside, and saw what my brothers had started pulling out into the open, the mess became undeniable. And what she saw changed everything. After everything happened, I did what a lot of people did when they felt like their own reality got twisted. I wrote it down. I put the facts in order. I tried to keep it simple. I was 4 months pregnant. I came home from a week in the hospital. I found strangers living in my house. My office was torn apart. There was trash and used diapers. I begged my husband to help. He blamed me. I called my mom. Quick recap. I came home sick, found the house ruined, and got blamed. The responses split into groups fast. It felt like a trial, like people lined up on different sides and argued over what mattered most. Some comments made me feel seen for the first time in days. Some made me feel like I had done something unforgivable by asking for help. The first camp was health first. Those people did not care about family politics. They cared about my body and the baby. They kept repeating the same point in different ways. Pregnancy plus a hospital stay meant rest was not optional. It was a medical requirement. They said a partner's first job was to protect the home environment so recovery could happen. They said the phone call was emergency support, not drama. They did not describe it as me running to my mother. They described it as me calling a lifeline because my husband refused to act. When I read those comments, my chest loosened a little. They made me feel like I was not crazy for feeling unsafe in my own kitchen. Like it made sense that my body reacted with panic when I could not even find a clean glass. The second camp was consent matters. They focused less on the trash and more on the decision that started everything. They said you could not move people into a shared home without full agreement. Not a quick yes under pressure. Not a yes while someone was sick, exhausted, and too weak to fight. Real consent. They pointed at my office being dismantled as the clearest sign of disrespect. They said it was not just a mess. It was my space being taken. My work being treated like it did not matter. They also hated the way my husband minimized me. They said the bigger issue was him telling me it was not that bad and calling me dramatic. They saw the phone call as a reaction to being dismissed, not an attack. For them, the real betrayal was moving people in without true consent. The third camp was guests must contribute. Those people got angry on my behalf in a very direct way. They did not talk about feelings first. They talked about responsibility. They said if you stayed in someone's home, you cleaned up after yourself. You did not leave diapers where someone could smell them. You did not fill every cup and leave nothing clean. You did not let your children bang on doors and scream while you hid in a room. They said the title of family did not erase basic rules. They talked about the kids too, not blaming them, but saying the adults had failed them by allowing chaos to become normal. They focused on basic responsibility, not family titles. Then there was the fourth camp, and reading those comments made my face burn with anger. I thought of it as the marriage privacy camp. They believed I crossed a line by calling my mom in front of my husband. They said I should never bring parents into marital conflict. They said I embarrassed him and escalated it on purpose. Some people used words like betrayal. They said I should have waited until he calmed down, or had a private talk, or given him time to handle it. What got to me was how some of them ignored the part where I had tried. I had cried. I had asked. I had cleaned while dizzy. I had said I needed the guests to leave. I had been told no. When I read those comments, I kept thinking, how long was I supposed to wait? Until I passed out again. Until something happened to the baby. Until I stopped being able to work. Until the house did not feel like mine at all. But that camp did not see it as a safety call. They saw it as me choosing my mother over my husband. They saw it as me choosing a side. The 5th camp was the husband is under stress camp. These people still admitted my situation was bad, but they kept turning toward him with sympathy. They said he was stuck between his wife and his brother. They said family crises made people act stupid. They guessed he was overwhelmed, juggling too much, trying to be a good brother and a good husband at the same time, and failing both. They said his anger might have been fear, and his denial might have been shame. Some of them wrote that he probably told himself it was not that bad because, if he admitted it, he would have to admit he messed up. Those comments confused me because part of me understood that. I could picture him trapped in a role he did not know how to escape. But another part of me could not accept it, because being stressed did not give him the right to treat me like my needs were a nuisance. Stress did not give him the right to choose my health as the thing he sacrificed. The 6th camp was everyone sucks here, but mostly him. They were the people who tried to balance the scale. They said my husband was wrong to move people in and wrong to blame me. But they also said I should have set harder boundaries earlier. They asked why I cleaned it all. They asked why I did not leave the first day. They said my passive coping let the situation grow until it exploded. They said I should have refused from the start, even if it caused a fight. Those comments hurt because they touched something I already feared about myself. I had tried so hard to keep peace that I had almost trained people to expect me to absorb anything. I saw that in my own behavior. I had been washing dishes while sick because I wanted the conflict to go away, and I had ended up with even more conflict. That did not make the mess my fault, but it did make me realize how trapped I had felt. A 7th camp formed too, and it was colder than the rest. The practical and legal camp. They talked about what it meant to let people move in. They warned me that guests could become tenants if they stayed long enough. They said my husband had created a situation that could have taken months to undo. They told me to document the mess, take photos, save messages, protect myself financially. They said I should not let anyone make me feel guilty for protecting my home, because if things went worse, guilt would not pay the bills or repair the damage. Reading those comments made my stomach drop, because it made the situation feel bigger than dirty dishes. It made it feel like my home could have been taken from me slowly, one small compromise at a time, until there was no clean glass and no quiet room and no control left. There was another group focused on the mother-in-law, even before she walked through my door. They predicted it. They said she would hear a version of the story that painted me as unkind. They said my brother-in-law would call her first to control the narrative, and my husband would let him. They said family loyalty often protected the loudest person, not the most vulnerable one. When I read that, I felt a chill because it matched what I already knew about the way my husband avoided conflict with his family. He did not like confronting them, so he chose the easier target, me. The most painful thing was that every camp, even the ones on my side, seemed to agree on one truth. Something had shifted in my marriage, not because of a phone call, but because I had learned what happened when I said I was not okay. I kept thinking about that moment in the office. The moment I said I needed them to leave, and he said no. End of discussion. The moment his loyalty turned into a wall. The moment my home stopped feeling like a place I could recover. Some people wrote that a husband should not need outside pressure to do the right thing. Others wrote that outside pressure was sometimes the only thing that worked. And the harshest comments said if I had to call my mom to be protected, then I was already alone in that marriage. I did not know which one scared me most, because I did not call my mom to punish him. I called her because my body felt like it was failing, and the house felt like it was closing in. I called her because I was afraid of what would happen if nothing changed. I called her because the man who should have listened to me did not. But not everyone agreed. Some people insisted I made it worse the second I involved my family. And the worst part was, those comments felt like a warning. Because the moment my mother-in-law got involved, it stopped being about mess and noise. It became about loyalty. The comments kept coming, and the more I read, the more I understood that people were not only judging my choice, they were judging what kind of marriage they believed in. Some believed problems stayed inside the house, no matter what. Others believed the moment a person felt unsafe, the house stopped being private. The camp that hit me the hardest was the "you escalated" group, because they sounded so confident. They did not deny the mess. Most of them even said the used diapers and piles of dishes were disgusting. But they questioned how I responded. They said bringing my mom into it, in front of my husband, was a public humiliation. They said I turned an argument into a family war. They said if I had a problem with the guests, I should have handled it directly with the guests, calmly, with clear rules, instead of calling backup like it was an emergency. Some of them wrote that I should have waited until the next day and talked privately with my husband again. They used phrases like cool down and rational conversation. They said I should have protected my husband's dignity even if he was wrong, because marriage meant choosing each other first. They also warned me about long-term damage. They said my brothers coming in and complaining out loud would stain family relationships for years. They said my mother-in-law would never forgive it. They said holidays would be tense forever. They said I had created a story where my husband was the villain and my family was the rescue team, and that dynamic would rot a marriage. They did not deny the mess. They questioned the method. I stared at those comments and felt my throat tighten because I understood something they did not. My husband had already chosen a side. He had already decided my discomfort was acceptable. He had already refused to change anything. If I had waited, I would have been waiting inside the same chaos, with the same denial, in the same house that did not feel safe. And the part about talking to the guests calmly made my hands shake with anger. I had tried. I knocked on a door. I asked for help with the screaming. I got told they were fine. I got attitude. I got a door shut in my face. Calm had not worked. The more I read, the more I realized that camp assumed my husband was a person who would respond to reason if I found the right words and the right time. They assumed he was temporarily upset, but I had been looking at him in the office when he told me I did not make them feel welcome. I had heard the certainty in his voice when he refused to make them leave. That was not a temporary mood. That was a decision. Then there was the husband failed as partner camp, and their comments felt like someone finally said the sentence I was afraid to say out loud. They focused on the moment he came home and blamed me. They said a good partner would have walked into that mess and apologized immediately. They said a good partner would have asked what I needed after I spent a week in the hospital. They said he should have protected my recovery like it was his job, because it was. They got specific. They brought up how he blamed me for not serving guests while I was ill, like I was a host at a party instead of a pregnant woman trying not to faint. They brought up how he ignored my clear request to clean while I slept. They brought up how he dismissed me with "it is not that bad." They said that line was a red flag because it turned my reality into an argument he could win. And they kept repeating the same core idea. He put family drama above his pregnant spouse. Some of them wrote that if a man could watch his wife cry in her own home and still defend the people causing it, then the marriage already had a crack in the foundation. They called it a trust break, not just a bad day. That phrase stayed in my head, trust break, because it matched what I felt in my body. After the hospital, I needed my house to feel stable. I needed my husband to feel like the safe person in the room. Instead, I felt like the safe person was my mom, and the dangerous person was my husband's refusal. And once that flipped, it was hard to unsee it. But even the strongest supporters did not make me feel fully relieved. Some comments went too far in the other direction. They told me to leave him immediately. They told me to get a lawyer. They told me this was who he really was. They spoke with certainty about my life, like it was a simple story with a simple ending. It was not simple to me. I still loved him. I still remembered how excited he was when we bought the house. I still remembered him rubbing my back when I was sick earlier in the pregnancy, before it got severe. I still remembered that he could be gentle. That was part of the horror of it. I could hold two versions of him in my head, and I did not know which one would win. Then the advice comments formed their own camp, and they sounded like people who had lived through something similar. They did not focus on blame as much as control. They said I needed a boundary plan now, not later. They told me that if anyone stayed in our home again, there had to be rules in writing, a time limit, a move-out date, a chore list, quiet hours, no children banging on doors, no changing diapers in shared spaces, no taking over my workspace, no touching my things. They said rules meant nothing without consequences. If the rules were ignored, the visit ended. No debates, no guilt, no one more night. They pushed couples counseling hard. They said the pattern was bigger than the brother-in-law. The pattern was my husband making choices under pressure, then taking his frustration out on me because I was the safest target. They said if we did not fix that, it would repeat with the next crisis, and the next one, until it became normal. They treated it like a systems problem. Rules, enforcement, and teamwork. Reading that advice made me feel both calmer and colder. Calmer, because it gave me steps. Colder, because it made me see my marriage like a structure that could fail if it did not get repaired. And that was the reset line I could not escape. This was no longer just cleaning. It was about who got priority. I kept thinking about the office because it was the clearest symbol. That room was not just a desk. It was my ability to work. It was my ability to contribute. It was my control over my own day. When it got dismantled without my permission, it was like someone had said my life could be rearranged without asking me, and my husband had watched it happen, or allowed it, or done it himself, and then acted like I was the problem for reacting. So when people said I embarrassed him, I kept circling back to one thought. How embarrassed did I feel standing in front of a sink, sick and shaking, realizing there were no clean glasses in my own house? How embarrassed did I feel hearing him tell me I did not try to make them welcome, like I was a bad host instead of a patient? How embarrassed did I feel when I knocked on a door and got dismissed like I was nothing? It was strange, but reading the debate made one thing clearer. My phone call was not the first escalation. It was the last one. The first escalation was moving them in without real consent. The second escalation was letting the mess grow. The third escalation was blaming me. The call was just the moment I stopped absorbing it quietly. Even the people who said I escalated it still agreed on one fact. Once outside family entered the house, everything changed. Eyes were on my husband. Eyes were on his brother. The mess stopped being something they could explain away. It became visible, and visibility turned into accountability. I read comment after comment about family loyalty, and I kept thinking about my mother-in-law, because she was the person most likely to enforce that loyalty. I knew she would not like that my mother and brothers showed up. I knew she would hear her son's version first. I knew she would arrive ready to defend her own. And that was the detail that kept coming up in the advice comments too. They said if my mother-in-law never saw the house, she would never believe me. They said the story would be controlled by whoever spoke first, not by whoever told the truth. I did not know how accurate those predictions were when I posted. At the time, I only knew how it felt in my bedroom while my brothers cleaned and my husband stayed angry in the kitchen. But in real life, outside the screen, the next moment arrived fast because my mother-in-law did not stay on the phone. She came in person, and when she finally walked through my front door and saw the house herself, the family narrative flipped on the spot. The first time I posted an update, it felt like standing in a bright room after hiding in the dark. People had argued about my phone call like it was the whole story. Then my mother-in-law walked into my house, and the argument changed because she saw what I had been living in. I heard her voice from my bedroom before I saw her. She sounded angry at first, like she arrived ready to defend her son and her other son. I could tell she had been told a clean version of events, a version where I was overreacting, and my brother-in-law was a grateful guest. That version died the second she smelled the house and saw the bags of trash my brothers had started pulling out. My mom called my name from the hallway, and I came to the door. I stayed in the doorway because my legs felt weak, but I wanted to see my mother-in-law's face with my own eyes. I needed to know if she would still blame me when the mess was right in front of her. Her expression changed as she looked past me. Her mouth opened like she meant to say something sharp. Then she stopped. Her eyes moved over the floor, the kitchen, the piles, the sticky counters. She stared at a used diaper my brother had dropped into a trash bag, like she could not believe it was real. She turned toward my brother-in-law. Her voice went quiet, which was worse than yelling. She asked him what he told her on the phone. My brother-in-law started talking fast. He said they had been cleaning. He said they stayed in their rooms. He said the kids were just adjusting. He said I had been upset and he did not want to bother me. Every sentence sounded like a small excuse, carefully shaped to make him look reasonable. Then my mother-in-law asked one simple question. She asked why there were used diapers in common spaces if they were staying in their rooms. He did not have an answer for that. He looked at my husband instead, like my husband could save him. My husband did not speak. He stood in the kitchen like a man caught between two fires, and for the first time I saw fear on him. Not fear for me, fear of his mother's disappointment. When I wrote the next update online, I said my mother-in-law arrived angry and left shocked. I said she realized my brother-in-law had lied to her about the condition of the house and about how I had acted. That detail mattered more than I expected because people who doubted me suddenly changed their tone. I watched the comments shift in real time. People who had said I escalated it started saying they understood why I called my mom. People who told me to keep it private went quiet. Some even apologized, not to me directly, but in that general way strangers did when they realized they judged too fast. The evidence changed minds. In the house, the power shifted too. My mother-in-law did not keep arguing about loyalty once she saw the mess. She took off her shoes, rolled up her sleeves, and started helping my mom clean. It was so strange that for a moment I thought I was imagining it. These two women from different sides of my life moved through my kitchen together, not as enemies, but as workers in a disaster zone. The sound of cleaning got faster, more controlled, less angry and more focused. Cabinets opened, floors got scrubbed, trash bags lined up by the door like bodies in black plastic. Every bag felt like proof that I had not been exaggerating. My mother-in-law asked questions while she worked. She asked why my office was destroyed. She asked why my papers were in my bedroom. She asked why my husband thought any of this was okay while I was sick enough to be hospitalized. My husband tried to speak then. He said he thought it would be temporary. He said he meant for it to be just a couple of days. He said his brother had nowhere else to go. He said he planned to clean, and it got away from him. My mother-in-law did not accept that. She told him temporary did not mean without permission. She told him a plan that did not happen was not a plan. She told him his wife was not a storage unit for his brother's problems. When I wrote that part online, another group of comments grew louder. Protect the pregnancy. People started talking less about blame and more about stress. They reminded me that stress was not just an emotion. It was physical. It affected blood pressure, sleep, hydration, and recovery. They said the loudest part of the story was not the used diapers. It was the fact that I had fainted before, hit my head, and still got placed back into chaos. They told me to stop trying to be the strong one. They told me to accept help. They told me to build a support system that did not depend on my husband's mood. And that was exactly what happened next. Even though I did not plan it, my mother-in-law made a decision in the middle of the cleaning. She told my brother-in-law that he and the kids would come stay with her. Not later. Not after things calmed down. That day, my brother-in-law protested. He said it would be crowded. He said it would be hard. He said the kids were settled. My mother-in-law did not care. She said my home was not a shelter. She said my health came first. Then came the part that made the house feel haunted again. My sister-in-law did not come out of the room. At first, I thought she was asleep. Then I heard my mother-in-law knock and tell her to come out. There was no response. My mother-in-law knocked again, firmer. Still nothing. When my mother-in-law raised her voice, my sister-in-law finally answered from behind the door. She screamed. Not words at first, just raw sound, like an animal trapped. Then she screamed that nobody could tell her what to do. She screamed that she was not leaving. She screamed that everyone was against her. I stayed in my room for most of it, but I heard enough to feel my skin prickle. There was something wrong in the way she yelled. It was not just anger. It was refusal. Like reality itself offended her. My mother-in-law did not argue with the door for long. She shifted to the children. She packed their bags with my brother-in-law, moving quickly, speaking low, so the kids would not panic more than they already had. The kids cried and clung to their father. They looked exhausted, like they had been living inside noise for too long. That night, my brother-in-law and the kids left for my mother-in-law's house. My sister-in-law did not walk out with them. Later, her family came and picked her up. I did not see the goodbye. I only heard the front door open and shut, and I felt my house breathe for the first time in days. The silence after felt unreal. It was not peaceful yet. It was just empty of screaming. When I posted that update, the comment sections turned sharp again. People started asking what was wrong with my sister-in-law. People started speculating about mental health, about addiction, about secrets. I did not answer those guesses because I did not know. I only knew what I heard through the door. The deep cleaning continued. The house started to look like a home again. It also started to feel like a crime scene being erased. Every wiped counter felt like someone trying to remove evidence of what I had been forced to tolerate. But even with the house cleaner, my marriage felt dirtier. I could not forget my husband's words. You always do this. You get dramatic. You make everything about you. Those sentences stayed in my head like recordings that played on their own. When the house finally got quiet, I asked my husband for space. I did not ask as a threat. I asked because I felt like I could not breathe around him. I felt like my body did not trust him. I felt like if he stood too close, I would start shaking again. He went to a hotel. That detail became another turning point in the online reactions. Some people said it was good. Some said it was the beginning of the end. Some said it was the only way he would understand consequences. In real life, it did not feel like consequences. It felt like a pause in a movie right before the worst scene. The house was clean, but my chest still hurt. Both sets of parents got involved after that, not in a fighting way this time, but in a support way. My mom and my dad checked on me. My mother-in-law checked on me too, which still felt strange. A meal plan got organized, so I did not have to cook or stress about food while I was still recovering. It sounded nice when I wrote it, but emotionally, it felt like being surrounded by helpers, because my husband had failed at the one job he could not fail. Later, my husband and I had a long talk. He admitted his brother was only meant to stay briefly. He admitted it got out of control. He admitted he took his frustration out on me because he did not want to confront his brother. That was the closest thing to honesty I had heard from him in weeks. It did not fix the trust, but it made the damage visible. We agreed to stay separated for now. We agreed on marriage counseling and individual counseling. He agreed to attend the nurse visits and doctor appointments with me, not as a gesture, but as a responsibility. When I shared that online, people reacted in two ways. Some praised the counseling plan. Some warned me not to confuse promises with change. They said change showed up when pressure returned, not when guilt was fresh. Then, much later, another detail came out, and it explained the strange behavior in a way I did not expect. My sister-in-law admitted to an affair. She said she did not want the responsibilities of being a mom anymore. When I typed that update, my hands shook. Not because it surprised me, but because it made me see how much chaos had been dragged into my house without my consent. It was not just a messy family. It was a collapsing one. And my husband had tried to solve their collapse by putting it on my back. The family power structure shifted when the older generation saw reality. My mother-in-law stopped defending the story she was first told. She started managing the fallout herself. My brother-in-law had to answer questions he could not dodge. My husband had to face consequences he could not talk his way out of. Update recap. The guests left. The home was deep cleaned, and the marriage entered a serious pause. The house felt calmer after that, but calm did not mean safe. Calm just meant the noise stopped. At night, when the lights were off and I could hear my own breathing again, I kept thinking about the baby coming. I kept thinking about how close I came to passing out again in a house full of strangers. I kept thinking about how fast my husband chose other people over me, and how long it took for him to admit it. The house was mine again, but I did not know if my marriage still was. The house was calmer now, but could the marriage rebuild trust before the baby arrived? When the house finally got quiet, the silence did not feel like peace. It felt like the moment after a storm when you walked outside and saw what was broken. I had clean floors again and empty trash cans, but I still felt dirty inside. I kept thinking about how fast my home turned into a place I could not rest, and how slowly my husband believed me. He asked to talk after he stayed at the hotel for a night. He did not come in confident like he used to. He stood in my living room like a guest, like he was not sure he was allowed to touch anything. That alone hurt, because I remembered how he used to walk through the house like it was our shared future. Now, he moved like the house had teeth. He told me again that his brother was only meant to stay a short time. He said it was supposed to be 2 or 3 nights. He said his brother called him in a panic, and he did not know how to say no. He said he thought he could handle it before I came home. He said he thought he could clean fast and put my office back and make it look like nothing happened. When he said make it look like nothing happened, I felt my stomach twist. That sentence explained too much. He did not plan to protect me. He planned to hide the damage. He planned to erase the evidence so he would not have to face my reaction. He admitted he got overwhelmed. He said his brother kept adding one more request, one more problem, one more excuse. He said his brother's kids were loud, and his sister-in-law stayed shut in that room, and he did not know what to do with any of it. He said every day he meant to set rules, and every day he avoided the fight because he hated conflict with his family. Then he looked at me and said the part that landed hardest. He said he took his frustration out on me because I was the only person he felt safe pushing back on. He said he knew I would not explode like his brother would. He said he knew I would try to be fair. Hearing that felt like someone turned a key inside my chest. It was an explanation, but it was also a confession. He had treated my kindness like a tool. He had used my patience as a shield, so he did not have to be brave with anyone else. I asked him why he dismissed me when I cried. I asked him why he told me it was not that bad when I could not even find a clean glass. I asked him why he called me dramatic when I had just come home from the hospital, still weak enough that I could feel dizziness in my hands. He stared at the floor and said he was embarrassed. He said he felt like a failure because he could not keep the house under control. He said when I cried, it made him feel like he was being accused, and he reacted by denying it. He said he wanted to believe it was not that bad because if it was that bad, then he had failed me. That answer made me feel two things at once, and they did not fit together. One part of me wanted to hold him because I could hear the shame in his voice. The other part of me wanted to push him away because his shame had not stopped him from hurting me. It had only made him louder. He apologized. He said he was sorry for letting them move in. He said he was sorry for letting my office get destroyed. He said he was sorry he made me feel unsafe in my own home. He said he was sorry he blamed me for not making them feel welcome, like I was supposed to host guests while I was sick. I listened, and I hated myself for how much I wanted his words to fix something. I also hated how little they fixed, because I had begged him before. I had used calm words and tears and exhaustion, and he did not listen until other people walked in and saw the mess. I told him that was the real cost. Not just the cleaning, not just the embarrassment. The cost was that he did not believe me until my mother and my brothers and his mother made it impossible for him to deny. The cost was that my body learned I could not relax around him when I needed him most. He asked for another chance. He did not demand it. He asked like he knew he had no right to be sure. He said he loved me. He said he wanted to be a good husband and a good father. He said he did not want our baby to come into a broken home. That word, broken, echoed in my head because the house did not feel broken anymore. The marriage did. I told him I needed space. I said it clearly, without yelling, without crying. I said I could not pretend everything was normal just because the trash was gone. I said my nervous system still felt like it was in danger. I said I needed time to see if he could change patterns, not just say sorry. He nodded, but I could see the panic behind his eyes. He asked if space meant divorce. He asked if I was done with him. He asked if I was going to choose my family over him forever. I told him I did not want to punish him. I told him I wanted safety. I told him that if he wanted to be my partner, he had to act like it, even when his family pushed. I told him he had to stop using me as the soft place to throw his anger. We made a separation plan because we needed structure, not promises. He stayed out of the house for now. He said he would keep paying his share. He said he would not bring anyone into the house again without my full agreement. He said he would not speak to me like that again. The plan sounded clean when we said it, but it still felt like walking on cracked ice. Because a plan only mattered when pressure came back. We talked about counseling. I told him I wanted marriage counseling, and I wanted individual counseling for both of us. Not because I thought a therapist would magically fix us, but because I needed a witness. I needed someone trained to catch the moments where he tried to twist reality to protect his pride. I needed him to learn how to say no to his family without making me the enemy. He agreed faster than I expected. He said he would schedule it. He said he would show up. He said he would do whatever it took. Then I told him something I had been holding back. I told him I did not feel safe going through the rest of this pregnancy with stress like that. I told him my nurse visits and doctor appointments were not optional moments anymore. They were checkpoints. I told him if he wanted to rebuild trust, he had to step into the reality of my health instead of staying outside it. He agreed to attend the nurse visits and the doctor appointments with me. He said he wanted to understand what the doctor said. He said he wanted to hear what stress did to a pregnancy. He said he wanted to be there. I nodded, but inside I stayed guarded. Because he had wanted things before. He had wanted to help, wanted to be a good husband, wanted to keep peace. Wanting had not stopped him from letting strangers take over our home while I was in a hospital bed. After he left, I sat alone on my couch and listened to the house. It sounded normal again. No crying children. No banging doors. No trash bags being dragged across the floor. But my body still waited for the next blow, like calm was a trick. The crisis ended, but the lesson had not been learned yet. I still loved him, and that love felt like a problem I could not solve. It made me doubt myself. It made me remember the good moments and wonder if I was being too hard. Then I remembered the used diapers and the empty cabinets and the way he looked at me like I was the inconvenience. And the anger came back, sharp and clean. I realized something that scared me more than the mess ever did. The mess could be scrubbed away. The pattern could not without real work. And I did not know if remorse meant he understood the pattern, or if he only understood that he got caught. Remorse was a start, but it was not proof of change. My house looked normal again, but it did not feel like it belonged to me in the same way. After strangers slept behind my doors and left their trash in my rooms, I started noticing every sound at night. A floorboard creak made my heart jump. A car door outside made me sit up in bed. I kept expecting to open a closet and find something that did not belong to us. My mom stayed close for a while. My dad came by too, steady and quiet, the kind of support that did not ask questions unless I wanted them. He checked the locks without making a show of it. He carried bags of groceries like he was building a wall out of routine. My parents being in my home felt comforting, but it also felt like proof that my marriage had failed a basic test. I should not have needed my father to make me feel safe in my own living room. The meal plan started the next day. It was almost surreal how organized it became. My mom and my mother-in-law coordinated times and drop-offs like they were running a small operation. One day soup arrived, the next day pasta, then breakfast items, then fruit and snacks I could keep near my bed. They did not ask me to host. They did not ask me to smile. They treated my recovery like something serious. That teamwork should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it made me feel a quiet shame I could not fully explain. Not because I did anything wrong, but because it showed me how much effort it took to repair what one decision had broken. 2 mothers, my brothers, my father, and a deep cleaning, just to get my home back to a state where I could drink water without washing a cup first. I needed calm more than anything, and calm turned into a rule I protected like it was medical equipment. I kept my phone on silent. I kept lights low. I kept the house as quiet as I could because my body reacted to stress before my mind could. If my heart started racing, nausea followed. If nausea hit, I stopped eating. If I stopped eating, I started sliding back toward the place that put me in the hospital. That was what people did not always understand when they argued about family and embarrassment. This was not only about feelings. It was about my body. It was about the baby. When the house became chaotic, my health became fragile. When my health became fragile, everything else became less important. The hardest part was imagining the baby arriving. I pictured a newborn in that same house, and my stomach tightened. A baby needed clean space. A baby needed quiet. A baby needed adults who responded fast. I kept thinking about how my husband responded when I needed him most. I kept thinking about how he looked at me like my needs were an inconvenience. And I asked myself a question I did not want to ask. If I could not trust him to protect me, could I trust him to protect our child? My husband texted to check in, and he did show up to the nurse visit like he promised. He sat beside me, listened, nodded, and asked questions. Part of me wanted to believe that meant change had already started. Another part of me watched him the way you watched a storm cloud. I looked for signs that he was only performing because he felt guilty, because his mother got involved, because he got embarrassed. I learned that trust did not return in one conversation. It returned in small choices repeated under pressure. And I had not seen him under pressure again yet. The in-law boundaries were another problem that did not disappear just because the guests left. My mother-in-law helped, yes. She showed up when she saw the truth, yes. But I could not forget her first message to me. the one where she criticized me and said I made my brother-in-law uncomfortable. That message told me who she believed when she did not have evidence in front of her eyes. It told me how quickly I could become the villain again if the story got told the right way. So I started thinking in rules instead of hopes. No one stayed in our home without both of us agreeing, clearly, out loud. No one moved anything in my house, especially not my workspace. No one touched my papers. No one used my home like a backup plan. If someone needed help, we helped in ways that did not destroy our safety. I knew those boundaries would upset people. I knew my husband's family might call me cold. I knew there would be comments about how family should always take family in. But I had lived through what happened when the word family got used as a weapon. I had seen how quickly I became the person expected to sacrifice. I also kept thinking about my brother-in-law and his kids. They moved to my mother-in-law's place, but that did not mean their situation became stable. Kids did not stop needing food and quiet because they changed houses. And my brother-in-law still had the same habit of minimizing and avoiding responsibility. Even after my mother-in-law saw the mess, he tried to explain it away. He still wanted to be seen as the victim of bad luck instead of the adult who let a home become filthy. Then there was my sister-in-law. Even before the later confession about the affair, her refusal to come out of that room stayed in my mind. The way she screamed through a door, the way she would not face anyone, the way she left separately. It made me feel like there were parts of their crisis my husband never told me or never understood before he brought it into my house. And that created a new fear for me. Not just that relatives might need help again, but that my husband might hide the truth again to avoid conflict. He might agree to something and tell himself it was temporary. He might try to make it look like nothing happened. I did not want to live in a home where reality could be edited without my consent. Some nights, when the house was quiet and I could hear my own breathing, I thought about the moment I called my mom. I replayed it, the phone in my hand, my husband listening, my voice shaking while I described the mess. I wondered if there was another way. I wondered if I could have waited, spoken softer, tried again. Then I remembered the used diapers, the empty cabinets, the sticky dishes, the crying children, the locked door, and my husband telling me it was not that bad. I stopped wondering because my body remembered before my mind did. My body remembered how unsafe it felt to be sick in a crowded house where nobody listened. My body remembered how close I was to fainting again. My body remembered that I had asked for help and got blamed. Final recap: sickness, surprise guests, refusal, family intervention, separation, counseling. And now, with the home clean and the noise gone, the real questions stayed in front of me like an unopened door. Would my husband follow through when nobody watched? Would he choose me first when his family pressured him again? Would he protect our child the way he should have protected me? So I wanted to ask you directly, the way people asked me when I posted this in pieces online. Was calling my mom necessary, or was it a betrayal? If you were in my position, what boundaries would you set for relatives staying in your home? Time limits, chores, quiet rules, consequences. What would you demand in writing, and what would be a hard no? Because I kept coming back to the same moral question, and it still made my stomach tighten. If your partner refused to protect your health and home, when did asking for outside help become the responsible choice?